Hi everyone! Do you want a designer looking headboard but you don't have the budget for it? Well, stay tuned as I show you step by step on how I made this headboard for $150. My name is Jordan and welcome to my channel. I just moved into this knotty pine house with my husband and our 2 kids, and I would love to bring you along the journey on how I turned this house into our dream home. So please subscribe, hit that like button, and let's get right into it.
So first things first, you're going to need to get your wood. This obviously is the structural aspect of your headboard. I used a 1/2-inch plywood. Anything thinner than this is not going to be sturdy enough for you, and anything wider is probably going to be too heavy to be stuck up on your wall. So just make sure you have your measurements before you go to the store to purchase. Big box stores will be able to cut the wood for you, so you definitely don't need any major wood cutting tools for this project. But you can really make this as big as you want it. For me, I took the measurement of my bed frame and I added 1.5 inches to each side. And then I just picked a spot on my wall where I wanted it to end up, and that ended up measuring at 41 inches from the metal bed frame, which is where I'm going to rest this headboard on. And then for the decorative finishing pieces on the side of the headboard, I used 2 1x4s and had these cut to the same 41 inches to match the height of the plywood. The wood ended up costing me $15. You definitely don't need anything fancy. I actually asked the worker, where I went was Home Depot, where the cheapest wood was for the 1/2-inch plywood, and I just got that cut for me. So onto the material. First you'll need batting, and this is going to give your headboard cushion. Now you can either buy a roll like the one shown in the picture, or you can get some cut at the counter like you would any other material, but this is just what I chose for cost and ease. And just make sure that it's big enough to fit on your piece of plywood. So for instance, this roll was 43 inches wide, so it was perfect for my 41-inch plywood. And for the actual material that will be on the structure, go for an upholstery fabric. It's a heavier, thicker fabric. And since we're essentially making a piece of furniture, you want something that's more durable than your normal drapery fabrics. My bed is a king-size bed, and 3 yards was perfect for me. I had very little fabric left over, but this was my biggest cost of my project. I used a coupon from Joann, so always look out for those or any sales that might be going on, because it's definitely nice to save some money in this portion of the material list. And my total cost for both of these was still $105. Now onto the hardware you'll need for this project. I got both of these off Amazon, which I will link in the description box below. But these brackets are what allow you to connect the 2 1x4 pieces to your main piece of plywood. And even though I'm resting this headboard onto my metal bed frame, I'm using these heavy-duty Velcro strips to ensure that it doesn't move around on me. Now, if you're worried about wall damage, if you're renting or anything like that, I'm sure you could use the Command Strike Velcro pieces that they have, but these Velcro strips pictured are definitely stronger than that. The total cost for me in this area was $27. Last but not least, you'll need a few tools for this project. First off, you'll need a tape measurer to figure out the size of your headboard and all that. You'll need a staple gun to attach the material onto the headboard, but just make sure you're using staples that are big enough, since you are going to be stapling through a few layers of fabric. And lastly, you'll need a screwdriver to attach the brackets. My total cost, not including the tools, was $146. All right, now that we have everything we need, let's jump into making this headboard. So first, I'm laying down my batting and I'm just measuring to make sure I have the correct length. I am going to use a couple layers of this batting since I have the material for it, and it'll give me a little extra cushion. But make sure you don't forget about those side pieces. Here I'm leaving a little extra of that batting out for those and cutting it off. Lay your plywood down, and then we're going to be stapling this batting onto the wood. But it doesn't need to be fancy, we're just getting it on there. So a couple staples will do. Don't worry about being precise. We're gonna do that when we put the upholstery fabric on. Now I know I kind of jumped here, but just lay out and cut your material the same way you did your batting. And you can put some staples further apart at first, but then just go back through and pull the material really tight and put as many staples as you need to get that material as tight as you can. Now the corners I'm folding here, just use your wrapping present skills. because I'm just doing this the same way as I would maybe wrap a present. That's what I think about when I was doing the corners. And you can see here, I'm just pulling that material as taut as I can make it and adding just a bunch of staples. Now onto the two short pieces. I'm just cutting in half the extra material I left out to cover these. And just make sure that when you're covering these, you're putting the staples on the 1-inch side of the board, not the 4-inch side, because the 1-inch side is what's going to be touching your wall, so you're not going to see any staples. You can kind of see it on that front one there. I have all the staples on the short end. So now we're just going to attach everything. I actually used books to prop up the big piece of plywood so that it was the same level as I needed as the short pieces. And I'm just using those brackets, and they had screws that came with it, and I'm just screwing it right in. And you don't need to do any extra drill holes or anything beforehand. They just went in really easy, even if there were staples behind those screws. And I'm using my foot there to kind of make sure that it's pressing really tight up against the plywood so there's no gap in between the end piece and the main piece of plywood. And you can get a really good angle here. And what I mean when I say on those short pieces, keep the staples on the 1-inch side. That's going to be hitting up against the wall so you don't see anything. And when you do your corners, just play around with them and make sure that they kind of all look symmetrical and even. They're not all bunched up. You just want to make sure you get this material as tight as you can so there's no wrinkles in it later. And honestly, that was pretty much it. So here my husband is helping me move it to the head of the bed. We're resting it on the metal bed frame, and it is pretty heavy, so I'm just using those Velcro strips just to secure it even more. Those things are really strong and heavy duty, so I've tried to kind of wiggle the headboard and it's not moving anywhere, so I'm not worried about it falling or anything like that.
Well, that's it. I hope this video inspired you to create something for your own home, and be sure to comment down below if you decide to make this headboard, and be sure to tag me in any photos of your finished products. Well, until next time, see ya.